Hello, you're back with a single malt review as we return to Speyside and to GlenAllachie, one of Speyside's newer distilleries. We last visited GlenAllachie back in, I believe it was September 2018. We tried the 12-year-old from there. There's been a new lineup.
Yes, the new Billy Walker venture. You will previously be familiar with the Ben Riach Distilling Company, the triumvirate of very nice craft distilleries. Ben Riach, obviously, GlenDronach and GlenGlasser, sold now to Pernod Ricard in the great churn of, what do they call it? Consolidation? I don't know. There's a word for corporations eventually owning everything. But the new venture is GlenAllachie, which I can give forewarning I'm probably going to misname Craigellachie at some point in this video because, goodness, yeah, similar problems.
This one I bought as a birthday gift to myself a couple of months ago, and it was a recent release. This is a 10-year-old GlenAllachie with a port finish. I love a good port finish, and this one here, being a less peated whiskey, will let the port shine through even more. And it's quite a long finish as well. We're not going to give exact numbers here, but we know out of its 10 years, it has spent somewhere a bit over 8 years in American oak, so I assume ex-bourbon casks, then the rest of its time in ruby port pipes.
Yeah.
So that's possibly up to nearly 2 years of finish.
Basically, so we'll round up and say that's basically 20% of its maturation. Yeah. That's a very generous finish. That would be called, I think in many other, maybe less scrupulous bottlers, that would be called a second maturation, because that's getting up there in terms of length and finishing things. So we will be looking for good, proper, porty goodness coming out of here.
Bottled at a very generous 48%, which is nice. And both the tasting and nosing notes offered on the label include heather honey, rose hips, and dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate, a repeat offender in port casks.
I must say, as an absolute personal preference, I would go for tawny port finishes over ruby port, just because of the intensity, the tempestuousness, just the lashings of treacly goodness. However, any port in a, as it were, storm, and I'm completely happy with ruby port as a whiskey finish also.
Yeah, interesting colour. If you look at that one, that could be Oloroso. It hasn't done that pink thing that some port finishes do.
American oak casks, so you're saying it could be because it looks like it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Assuming there is no colouring here, I'm not sure how.
No colouring, no filtering.
Yeah, so we'll assume this is all genuine. Yeah. So I think it has taken up a lot of colour, and a lot of this darker colour is definitely coming from the port wood. But I think it is, and this is probably something to do with the ruby versus tawny equation here. I think without going into a thesis on the manufacture of port, ruby port gets put into wood for a comparatively very short amount of time. It just does its it's slightly semi, we'll call it oxidative aging in there. Nothing like Oloroso or things which are fully oxidized fortified wines, but port will sort of do it halfway, more or less.
Right.
And so ruby port goes into big vats, you'd almost call them, rests for a little while, and then is bottled quite quickly. So it doesn't mean the vats haven't seen a lot of contact with the port. They may well have, because they are used time and time again, and eventually broken down and probably rebuilt into whatever this
port pipes for this one.
Yeah, went into. So tawny, the port will sit around at tawny for decades sometimes. You know, if you see your jolly ridiculous 40-year-olds, whatever, tawny port, that's what it's sat around in, and so you'll get a lot more of the sort of port character oozing into the wood. But I think ruby, we're getting more of that just good, deep European oak colour coming through. Whether we're going to get anything flavour-wise, we'll just have to find out in the usual method.
So to compare it to the 14-year-old port finished Ardmore we tried previously,
yes,
which was ruby port though, wasn't it?
It was a port pipe. I'm not sure they specified.
That had distinctly pink hue, but it was much lighter too, so it got less from those American oak barrels. That was like stated as being ex-bourbon. This one is simply ex-American oak, so there's more leeway there. Anyway, onto this whiskey, not pondering whiskies past. There's a bit of a pink coppery edge to that. And the nose, ooh.
This is very porty.
Yes.
I think it almost happened immediately. GlenAllachie, I think, compared to the Ardmore, if you're keeping up with our progress, the one we tried last time, GlenAllachie, a whisky far more primed to take on a port finish. It's a far more gentle, middle of the road Speyside. Not this very, very particular individual thing like Ardmore is.
If there's any peat here, it is negligible at most. So I assume none.
No, I
So
would
there
agree.
is
No
lashings
peat here.
of the tasting and nosing notes from the label, I think, are coming quite true. There is a lot of chocolate. There is honey. There is
milk chocolate, which it's kind of a repeat offender nose for things that have been port matured / finished. Milk chocolate really seems to be something that comes part and parcel with port maturation of any kind, and I'm not even sure why that is.
I get more of a dark chocolate vibe, but
because
that's going to be more like the darker, more bitter elements.
If you taste port, chocolate has no part in that whatsoever. So it's something to do with this interaction with the wood and how that then imparts on the spirit that you get this spontaneous chocolate coming through. But you can't complain. It's a brilliant note.
Plums and red currants too.
Yeah, plums. Did it mention damson?
It's a quick reminder. Okay,
I believe it did.
Official nosing notes. The colour is red ruby. I have no bit out there. Nose. Waves of heather honey and sweet spice, laced with rose hip and dark chocolate. And rose hip is a good one. A perennial repeat offender in herbal teas and other things that need a little bit of a. The rose hip is actually technically the fruit of the rose plant. That's what you get after the flower fully matures. And it is just a good...
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Those are remarkably succinct and down-to-earth tasting notes as well. Yeah. So bravo for that. No distant Clyde puffer going on here.
Distant space hoppers.
Yeah.
The tasting notes are very similar. We have tastes of heather honey, butterscotch, treacle, and damson plum, rosehip, and dark chocolate once again.
I just had a sneaky sip there at the full 48, and that's pretty sippable at the 48. There's nothing.
Oh yeah,
nothing too intense there.
The flavours are way more intense and the darker end of the flavour spectrum compared to the nose. The nose is comparatively gentle. It suggests you're going to be in for possibly a bit of a mild experience, even a slight disappointment. But on the tongue, it really delivers. It is dark, syrupy, sweet with a bite and intensity.
That is plummy as all heck. The damson is. I don't think I've actually had a damson plum in my life, but this is the second whiskey that purports it as a primary tasting note, and boy oh, this is definitely stewed plums all the way.
Yeah.
Incredible.
The amount of port influence on this, well, due to again the length of that finish versus the overall maturation.
And as I suspected, that European oak is coming through quite strongly as well. There is quite a lot of things you normally typify with Oloroso coming through as well. There's some sort of black tea, there's some nice oaky tannins in there to offset the very, very sweet notes.
There's a good foundation, a level, nice smooth playing field of the American oak as well, which lays the groundwork for this port intensity to be built upon. Adding a little water has enlivened some fresher fruits on the nose, I think.
It's fruited it up.
It's zesting slightly.
Orange chocolate now.
Yeah. Dark
Zesty
chocolate orange.
Bit of
Candied peels, plum jam.
Whatever. Who was it? I almost said Terry Gilliam's chocolate orange. Is it simply Terry's? I think it's just Terry's chocolate orange, right?
Yes, the perennial English Christmas classic. Yeah,
so it might be.
Didn't
specify the surname. Could be a side endeavour. Probably not though. Yeah, chocolate orange. I'm never going to be able to unthink that. I've cursed myself every time I look at a bloody chocolate orange. Never mind. Super orange zest with that chocolate, and more of a lifted fruitiness now. Less plummy. The plums were so real at full strength, it's almost a shame to lose them, but...
It is quite there's a certain spirit-driven property to this too. That 10-year aging is enough for things to happen, but it leaves a little bit of that youthful vigour behind as well.
With all of these sort of quite mature notes, it's easy to forget this is still a 10-year-old whiskey.
Yeah.
which is not
Port
spankingly
just
old.
imparts so much in a relatively short time, so that's sort of driven it forward at full throttle for those nearly 2 years that it's been sitting in those port pipes.
And we said no peat. I'm just getting just the tiniest thread, like Crag and Moor levels of tiny Speyside peat.
If there is a portion of peat and malt in here, then it wouldn't be a surprise, certainly.
Like to go with a like a proper, Adelphi level Clyde Puffer tasting note. This is like candle being blown out in the next room. It's just the hint, the tiniest hint of peat.
The suggestion it met some peat in the street in passing one night.
Yeah, I don't know, but it took water to bring it out. But I think it's there. Of all places, I think GlenAllachie wouldn't be particularly shy about letting its peated level, if it even has one, been known. But yeah, that's interesting. Gives it a dimension as well and dries it off a wee bit. For a whiskey that could easily become...
As much as I like sweet, syrupy whiskies, there is such thing as, I guess, too much sweetness and going too far in that direction, especially if you want to appeal to people who are not just me, because that is a very small market. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a drier property, just to steer things back onto straight and narrow can probably be in its favour.
Yeah, I think on balance, still better with a bit of water, but not too much.
It works both ways, which is good. 48 seems to be a good strength. It's up there as close to some of the lower cask strengths, but it's obviously much down. It is still below those, but it's higher than the usual 40, 43 or 46, which is, it's a nice in between. You get a lot of whiskey, many drams per bottle. It's a very good ratio. It's a very cost-effective way to enjoy an excellent whiskey.
I rather like this. I think I can feel a score materialising here, as a lovely cloud materialises as well. So that's the chill filtration question answered quite succinctly. This is really very nice. This is actually, I think, one of the I won't say one of the better, but it's one of the GlenAllachies. It still hasn't got me. It's amazing. It's spooky. I might make it through an entire episode without misnaming a distillery. Though jinxed it now. I think I like this more than quite a lot of their standard range. I'm hoping this sort of becomes part of the standard range. I think it's sort of a seasonal at the moment, a one-off, but I think this works very well with the spirit, which it's not my favourite Speyside, but if it lacks anything, it's a bit of weight, which can be said for probably 70% of Speysides. Really, it's why I like slightly bulkier ones like Crag and Moor, and Deanston, which is actually Highland, but similar sort of style. I love this one. This one, it's hovering very close to 90. I don't think it quite gets over the hump, but it's an 89 for me. This is a really, really deeply enjoyable. What almost happened to GlenAllachie? It's still there.
Now, Tim's tried more GlenAllachies than I have. This is only the second, first one being that 12-year-old a couple of years back. However, this is my favourite of the two. This one gets 91 points from me. It is just an expert use of port pipes for that added maturation. It is a generous extra maturation as well. It's not hesitant, not just adding a thin veneer of portiness. It is really imparting that character. It has lifted this and turned it into something quite different from the usual Speyside. Well, I've found a lot with stronger Speyside whiskies. You add water and you get a lot of those less sweet tones. Say like the tin veggies, the dank old fruit starts to emerge. None of that here. It has stayed fruity, it's stayed chocolatey, it has stayed, it's had all the freshness of a completely unwatered, strong Speyside whiskey. It's retained that, but it's retained all character.
It's getting fresher as well. This one is
really, it is. It's not
still evolving. It's getting fruitier as the day goes on.
Adding water has not dampened it, not dulled it the way it does to the sweetness on your average Speyside whiskey. It's so about the way the port has been used and the way it contributes, which lifts this just above onto the frontier.
It's a very good whiskey, and were we doing ranking of port finishes, it would be even higher because I think once you get into the sort of once you enter the ring of portwood finish, I think you end up with some of the best and some of the abjectly diciest bottles of Scotch whisky on the planet, because it's something that can be done exceptionally, and it's something that can be done lazily. It can be done very, very poorly. It can be done for sort of shock value. You can just go and rinse a bit of that alluring pink colour out of it that people love to see on the shelf, and move a very boring whisky out there on its word alone, because people see, ooh, port finish, and they see that remarkable colour, and they assume something magical has taken place. And maybe it has, the magic of economy, but they can produce some just profoundly disappointing whiskies, and this is the opposite. This is it done properly. They've properly harnessed the nature of the portwood. They've given it long enough. This, I think, stands with that remarkable, was it 3-year-old? The Kiloma,
which was fully port matured for its entire
it wasn't
3 years.
old, but it had been in there a long time. That did it remarkably. Dave's long lamented, sadly now lost, was it a
20-year-old GlenAllachie, which had a tawny port finish and remains, to this day, my favourite whisky ever.
And I think there's now going even older and probably even more dead. There was a Ben Riach, I think 21 or 22 port matured / finished, and that was tremendous. This joined the pantheon of those great whiskies, I think. And we won't name and shame the what represents the bottom of the hill there, but they are out there, still in circulation. So if you do enjoy portwood, just do your research. Tune in, see what people have to say, because there is a difference. It can go one of two ways, and you want to make sure you are on the right side of that equation. I mean, you always want that when you're buying a bottle of whiskey, but I think never is the swing harder and harsher than it comes to portwood finishes. It's just it's a no man's land of all sorts of stuff going on. Anyway, we'll wrap this one up here. Oh yes, GlenAllachie, continuing to impress in the new year. So, Sludger, we will be right back with something. We won't make any predictions now, because the longer we make predictions, the more accurate I have to be with my production schedule, and my goodness, I'm just not that kind of producer. So you'll just get what you get, I suppose. So, Sludger, we'll be back with
something
mystery extrams.